Hi, everyone. Happy Diwali. My name is Triana Patel, and I work at the Asian Art Museum in Public Programs in our Education Department. I'm so excited to welcome you today to our virtual storytelling event that's to celebrate Diwali, the Festival of Lights. Today, and can we go to the next slide, Elsa? Today, we're going to be hearing about stories celebrating Diwali from all over South Asia, across different cultures, across different countries, and across different religions. And one thing we'll invite you to do in the chat is let us know how you celebrate Diwali with your family and community. We'd love to read the different ways you celebrate. You can put that in the chat. And I will go ahead and introduce Nancy, who will be giving the next introduction.
Good afternoon. You know, living in Southeast Asia for more than 20 years, I had the joy of sharing many of their festivals and celebrations. And of all of them, I think Diwali is one of my favorites. Diwali is not only about good food and nice clothes, it's about family and friends and celebrations of important stories and traditions. Across the world, millions of people light canned lamps and burst firecrackers to celebrate Diwali. Also known as Deepavali, meaning row of lamps, this holiday connects followers of multiple religions, as it's celebrated not only by Hindus, but by Sikhs and Jains as well. Darkness is overcome through the lighting of the diyas, the clay lamps, and each religion adds its own colors and traditions. Dancing, celebrations, and good food remind us all that life's greatest joys are the simple pleasures that come from spending time with the people we love. Diwali is often celebrated from 1 to 5 days and usually associated with a story from Hindu mythology, a great resource for us storytellers. There are regional differences, but the diverse stories are about the victory of good over evil. The festival often begins with the birth of Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, and her marriage to Vishnu, the preserver of humanity. She is welcomed into homes by the lamps and she brings good fortune. Diwali also commemorates the defeat of the demon Narakasura by Lord Krishna, an important story in South India and West India. In East India, Diwali celebrates a powerful goddess, Kali, who is also the slayer of demons. For Jains, Diwali celebrates Nirvana. Whoops, I skipped one. The most popular Diwali story is about the defeat of the evil demon king Ravana, how could I forget him, by Rama, an incarnation of the Hindu god Vishnu and a hero of India's Ramayana epic. For Jains, Diwali celebrates the Nirvana or the enlightenment of Mahavira, the 24th spiritual teacher of the Jain path and the contemporary tradition's founder. And Sikhs consider Diwali a commemoration of the release of Guru Hargobind, the 6th of their 10 spiritual leaders. Diwali also ushers in the new year in many parts of India, particularly in the business community. Whatever the region or the faith or the message, always the message is the same. It's a celebration of good over evil, of light over darkness, of knowledge over ignorance. Tonight we're going to hear a variety of stories from our diverse storytellers, which reflect the various origins and celebrations of Diwali. So welcome to the Asian Art Museum, and join us now as we celebrate Diwali and show you some of the related treasures from our wonderful museum collection. Our first teller tonight is Rupa Mohan, a storyteller and a school docent. She's originally from South India, and she will start by telling us about the traditions of that region. And now I want to pass the diya to Rupa. Rupa?
Thank you, Nancy. Happy Deepavali, everyone. That's how we say it in South India. Today, I'd like to take you to 2 stories about Krishna. Here he is in our gallery playing the flute. Krishna, it is said, lived a very, very long time ago with his beautiful warrior wife, Satyabhama. And he had come down as an avatar of the preserver god Vishnu. And he was here to bring about balance and harmony. And they needed it at that time because demons were starting to get very powerful, especially one demon called Narakasura. Naraka for short. He was cruel and mean. He had big, bulging eyes, and he wanted to control the entire universe. In fact, he had prayed very persistently and had been granted a boon or a wish that he could not be killed by anyone except his own mother. My mother is not going to kill me, he thought. And he went about on a rampage. He first conquered all the other demons. Then he kidnapped and imprisoned thousands of women. And finally, he went up to the heavens and he occupied the palaces of the gods. They were furious and angry, and they came down and asked Krishna to help. Krishna turned to his wife, the queen Satyabhama, and he said, "Don't worry, we'll take care of Naraka." So they summoned Garuda, their splendid vehicle, half eagle, half human. And they sat on Garuda and they flew towards Naraka's fortress. Naraka was watching, and he started out by sending hordes of demons. And they charged at Krishna and his queen with boulders and all kinds of weapons. But Krishna and Satyabhama were able to avoid all of them and sent the demons fleeing. They even killed the commander-in-chief, a vicious demon called Mura. Oh, Naraka was livid with anger, his eyes red and bloodshot, and he came wanting revenge. He approached Krishna and Satyabhama, and they saw him. And Krishna quickly handed over his bow and arrow to his queen and said that he was taking a break. And she, being a master archer, she picked it up, she aimed it, and then she released an arrow like lightning. It struck Naraka, and he said, "Ah, ah, ah, who are you? I thought I was going to live forever." Krishna came and said, "No, Naraka, your tyranny needs to come to an end. Your mother, this is a form of your mother. She is Mother Earth, and she is here to punish you." Well, he said, "Ah, Mother, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Please celebrate my death every year. Forgive me." And Satyabhama said, "Go in peace, my son." And they did celebrate. The gods showered them with flowers and people lit lamps. And we do that even today. In Tamil Nadu, where I come from, on the eve of Diwali, we light lamps and we burst firecrackers when it is permitted. The next morning, we take a ritual oil bath. We wear new clothes. We make offerings to the gods and goddesses. And we also seek blessings from elders. This is how we celebrate Diwali. And now I'd like to show you a beautiful artwork from our museum's collection. Do you see? If you look closely, you will see Krishna and Satyabhama on that vehicle, Garuda. perhaps they are getting ready to go and take care of Narakasura. Now, let me take you to another story from Krishna's childhood when he was a playful cowherd growing up in a place called Gokul in northern India. Close to them was a beautiful mountain, the Govardhan mountain, which means the mountain that nourishes the cows. And people were very happy there. But Krishna, the little cowherd, noticed that they were all getting ready to celebrate and worship the god Indra, the king of gods, who was also in charge of the weather. And they feared Indra, and they were getting to celebrate and worship him in more and more lavish ways every year. Krishna said, wait a minute, shouldn't we be celebrating nature, the nature that nourishes us, like the mountain Govardhan, with its rivers and forests and pastures? Let's thank Govardhan instead this year. And the villagers all agreed, and they started getting ready for a big puja ritual for Govardhan. Indra, of course, was very angry and jealous, and he decided to teach them a lesson. First, he sent dark clouds. Then he threw his thunderbolt, and there was thunder and lightning. And then the rains came down, heavy rains that never ceased. The people went and begged Krishna to help, and he took them all to the Govardhan mountain, and he lifted it up with his little finger like a giant umbrella, and the entire village, people and animals, stood under it, safe and dry, while Indra pounded them with more rain for the next 7 days and nights. And finally, God Indra realized that this was a special child, an avatar or form of Vishnu come to bring peace and harmony. And he came down, he stopped the bad weather, and he acknowledged that nature needed to be worshipped. You know, even today, we celebrate this episode in northern India where the Govardhan mountain still stands. People go around it the day after Diwali. They offer flowers and prayers and recall this wonderful episode. And those who live far away, they create a mountain of food and offerings called Annakut to remember this miracle from a long time ago. Now let's take a closer look at this episode. In fact, there are two scenes. If you look to the left, you will see the blue boy Krishna surrounded by the worshippers, asking him to help them. And then, do you see the mountain in between, which he is actually picking up with his little finger? Now, I would like to hand this over to Janie, who is a storyteller and a school docent. And she will be talking about a very important goddess, beautiful and generous, the goddess Lakshmi. So here is my diya for you, Janie.
Thank you, Rupa. I'm going to be telling you the story about Lakshmi and the clever washerwoman. You know, I had never heard of Lakshmi until I was an adult. I grew up in the middle of the United States on a farm. But coming to the Bay Area, you can't miss it. Now, if you look at these two images of Lakshmi, you see there are similarities and differences. But if you lived in India and grew up, doesn't make any difference. You would recognize Lakshmi. During Diwali, people want to invite Lakshmi into their homes, and they prepare by cleaning the house, decorating the entryway, and putting lamps out front. I want to tell you a story about a time long ago. It happened on the day before Diwali. The queen lived with the king in a palace surrounded by lawns with swaying palms and peacocks. And every year, the king gave the queen a present on the day before Diwali. One year, he gave her an elephant so she wouldn't have to walk anywhere when she wanted to walk around the palace grounds. Another year, he gave her a sari covered with jewels. And this year, he gave her a wonderful pearl necklace. And when she received the necklace, she said, oh, I have to show all my friends. Oh, I've got to wear it everywhere. And that's what she did. But when it came time to bathe in the river, she forgot to leave the necklace at the palace. Instead, when she got down to the river, she realized what she had done. And she took her necklace off and laid it on a rock. I said, nobody will take it. No one would dare steal from the queen. But she hadn't thought about animals. A big blackbird, a crow, saw that necklace down there, and he saw it gleaming, and he went, ah! And went down and grabbed the necklace and flew off. There was another woman at the river, a ways off. She was very unlike the queen. She was a poor washerwoman. And every day she went to the river and washed other people's clothes for money, enough to buy her food. She had to walk a long way from the poorest part of the city. And there she was washing a sari when she noticed the crow over her head, saw something fall down, plop, right in front of her, and it was the pearl necklace. Oh, she said, this has to belong to someone special. It's very valuable. And she tucked it under the clothes in her wash basket. And when the clothes were dry, she folded them carefully with that pearl necklace in the bottom and walked home. Now, it was really crowded in the area where she lived, and she heard people talking. Have you heard? Did you hear about the queen losing her necklace? Oh, and she's so sad. Oh, did you hear the king's offering a reward? And she knew what she had in her basket. Very quietly, she went in the house and closed the door. When everybody had kind of left the streets, she tucked the necklace into her clothing so nobody could see it and went to the palace. And when she got to the palace, she knocked on the door. The guard looked at her. What do you want? She reached into her clothes and pulled out the necklace. Oh, come in, come in. She was taken to the king and queen. The queen was so excited to have her necklace back. And the king says, now for her reward, bring the pot of coins. And a servant brought a pot of gold coins. The washerwoman says, I don't want that. What do you want, woman? I have a wish. I wish that tonight, no one else besides me will have a light welcoming Lakshmi. No one? Just me. I can make an order for that. I'll tell everybody. And that's what happened. The woman cleaned her house, decorated her doorway, put a lamp out front to welcome Lakshmi. And when Lakshmi came, it was dark. And she said, oh, have my people forgotten me? How can that be? Oh, then she saw one little light flickering. And she says, someone remembered me. And you know who it is. She went to the clever washerwoman's door, knocked on the door. The washerwoman opened it and said, welcome, Lakshmi. May I come in? Lakshmi said. First, I need you to grant my wish. I wish for good fortune and well-being for my family for generations to come. Your wish is granted. And it's true. They had good health, happiness, well-being, good fortune, all you could ask for. And for generations, they told their story about their clever ancestor who helped their family be so happy and successful. Thank you. And now I would like to pass my diva on to Ed. Ed Bayer is also a storyteller and school docent at the museum. And he's going to introduce us to another goddess from another part of India. Thank you.
Thank you, Janie. I'm going to put that down there. This is a statue of Durga and Mahisha, the buffalo demon, that you'll find in the Asian Art Museum in the Indian galleries, which we invite you to come and visit and see this statue. A statue of Durga sits in the galleries, actually right across from Parvati. And Durga is a manifestation of Parvati. So they sit right across from each other, and we invite you to come see them. The next slide. Another thing we'd like you to come see is this painting of the Hindu deity Durga, worshipped by Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. They have fantastic painting, which you can always find. As a storyteller, one of the favorite stories that I tell in the museum is a story about Durga. But before I tell you that story, this story, I want to take you to the eastern part of India. The state in eastern part of India, West Bengal and Assam. There they celebrate Diwali, but they celebrate with prayers to the goddess Kali. And they light firecrackers, they have great food, they have new home, they have new clothing, and they light the lights. And that is such an exciting celebration. But the story of Durga, because they also, not only do they pray in the Kali temples, they also pray to the temples recognizing they recognize the goddess Durga. The story that I tell about Durga and Mahisha, long time ago, there was a demon by the name of Mahisha. His father was the king of the demons. His mother was a buffalo. Durga could, as he was growing up, realized he could change shapes all the time. He could change his shape into an elephant or a tiger or even a human, but sometimes his favorite shape was that of the buffalo. Mahisha wanted to grow up to be the strongest demon ever. And he knew one of those ways was to maybe get a boon from one of the Hindu gods. So he prayed to Brahma. Brahma heard his prayers over a long period of time, granted him a boon, which is a wish. Now, Mahisha wanted to be immortal, but Brahma said, no, only the gods are immortal. Well, if you won't let me be immortal, I want that nobody other than a woman could destroy me. Brahma granted that request. Oh, Mahisha was so happy. It was strong and powerful. He felt it. And now the thing he wanted to do is he wanted to defeat the world of the demons below ground. He wanted to defeat the humans on the earth. And he wanted to defeat the gods in the heavens. So he felt so powerful after he got this boon, he went down and he defeated all of the demons below. And then he formed a huge army of demons and he went up into the human world and he defeated all of those and he conquered that world. What was left, he went up into the heavens and he pushed all of the gods out of their palaces. Oh, the gods, they were so upset. They couldn't figure out how they were going to defeat Mahisha. So they all went to the plains of the heavens and they formed a big circle where they started to meditate and to think about how they were going to defeat Mahisha. And all of this meditation and all of this thinking created huge, huge heat from their bodies. And in the middle of this circle was a great ball of fire. And out of this fire, the goddess Durga. And the gods bejeweled her. They gave her a sip of nectar that made her immortal. And they also began to give her the weapons for her many arms. Shiva gave her a trident, which is a long spear with 3 prongs. The god of war gave her a sword. Others gave her a lasso and a rope, a bow and arrow, and filled all of her arms with the various instruments that she needed. Durga then said, I'll have a lion for my mount. And she called the lion, she got on him and was riding across the plains of heaven, looking for Mahisha. Well, Mahisha saw Durga riding towards him. And he said, demons, grab your weapons, go capture that woman because I want her for myself. The demons, they grabbed their weapons, they headed out towards Durga. Durga saw the demons coming to her and started twirling in her arms with all of the weapons that she had and destroyed all of the demons. Oh, Mahisha couldn't believe it. Now he changed into his fiercest form of the buffalo. And his smoke was coming out of his mouth and out of his ears. And he was really, really angry. And he started heading towards Durga. And he was throwing up mountains and he was digging up the dirt. Now Durga saw him coming. She stood on top of her lion and she took her bow and arrow and shot an arrow at the heart of Mahisha. Mahisha saw the arrow coming. He changed his shape to a very large elephant. And the arrow bounced off the tough elephant hide. Durga saw this. She took her lassoed the elephant and pulled him down to the ground. She pulled out her sword and she was about to cut off the trunk to destroy him. But Mahisha quickly changed to a warrior, and he grabbed his sword and he was battling with Durga, and then Durga knocked the sword out of his head. Oh, now he changed back into his fierce buffalo form and he started heading back for Durga. Durga jumped back on her lion and she was heading towards Mahisha. She got on her feet, jumped off the lion, did a double somersault, landed on Mahisha and pushed him right to the ground. And she pulled out her sword and said, pretty soon, roar like a demon, you are going to be destroyed by a woman. And Mahisha was destroyed with a trident. The gods were pleased to see this happen. And they celebrate, similar to what they did, celebrate in Diwali. They brought peace. Durga had brought peace and balance back to the universe. And the gods and the goddesses now rule the world. Our next story is going to be brought to you by Terry Tan, who is also a storyteller at the Asian Art Museum. And she's going to tell you about some traditions outside the Hindu traditions. Terry, pass it to you.
Thank you, Ed, for these lights. I'm going to tell you about two other South Asian religious groups, the Jains and the Sikhs, who celebrate Diwali. But for them, this holiday celebrates liberation or release. First, let's look at the Jains. This is a statue of Lord Mahavira. The Jains live in India and all over the world. One of their most important spiritual leaders is Lord Mahavira. This Diwali for them commemorates the anniversary of his attainment of nirvana, or liberation of the soul. He was a figure born in 6th century BCE in India and lived a royal life until the age of 30, when he decided to meditate and find answers. But he was always a remarkable child and adult. And so they tell stories about him, and here's one of them. As a young child, he was very brave. One morning, one of the elephants escaped the temple gardens and went wild. The elephant normally was very peaceful, but something had enraged it. So it was running around the city, trampling on goods, trampling on people. Its trumpeting loudly. The prince was in another part of the city, but he heard about the story. He was sad and amazed. So he moved himself to the area where the elephant was, and the elephant was pulling trees out and throwing them on the ground. And the prince said, "Stop, stop. Why are you doing this? Why are you causing so much damage? What has made you so angry?" The elephant looked at him and he started to charge. But the young prince stood there calmly, even though he knew the elephant could cause him great harm. And the elephant began to slow down. And the young prince said, "Aren't you sorry for all the damage you've caused? You must apologize." And then he began to stroke the trunk of the elephant. And the elephant bowed his head, got on his knees, and seemed to show that he was really sorry. So all the people who had been hiding away, terrified, came out and they praised the prince, thanking him Then they told their family, friends, and neighbors how the prince had displayed such courage. So this is a story that the Jains tell about Lord Mahavira. And they celebrate by going to the temples and making prayers to him. No, not quite yet, please. They go to the temples and make prayers for him. But one of the things that are different about the Jain tradition, they do not light firecrackers because that is against their principles. They are afraid that firecrackers will harm living organisms. So the next religion I'm going to talk about is Sikhism. It's another religion that observes Diwali. They call the day of liberation, but they are talking about an entirely different figure, a historical figure. It celebrates the day that their sixth guru, Hargobind Ji, was freed from imprisonment by the Mughal emperor in 1619. Also, this is where I'd like the slide, please. Yeah, also it celebrates the founding of the holy city of Amritsar and its golden temple. And Sarah, you have a picture of this temple. So may I have the next slide, please? The Sikhs have a strong military tradition. They're considered a major warrior class. Look at this beautiful helmet, which is in our collection. And notice the unusual shape of the helmet. It was dictated by the needs of a Sikh warrior who went into battle with the uncut hair and put it in a top knot on top of his head and then went on to battle. So let me tell you a story about a very, very brave Raja who was also a famous Sikh. May I have next slide, please? This is a story about the beloved Maharaja Ranjit Singh, who brought together the Sikhs in the 19th century. He is known as the Lion of Punjab. But this story about him also illustrates the spirit of Diwali, a time for kindness and compassion. One day, the Ranjit Singh and his people, his soldiers and his servants, were walking down or parading down the street. People lined both sides of the street. They were so impressed by the beautiful uniforms and the glittering swords. All of a sudden, an old woman came out and started rubbing this iron pan against the Maharaja's clothes. The guards jumped up to try and pull her away, but he waved them off. And he said to her kindly, "Old mother, why are you rubbing this iron pan against my clothes?" The old woman looked up and said, "Your Excellency, I have heard that if you rub an iron pan against the clothes of a king, it will turn to gold like a magic stone. I am an old woman trying to provide a dowry for my daughter. But this iron pan, it's still iron." The leader said, "No, it has become gold." And he gestured to a servant who filled the pan with gold. And the old woman wept with gratitude. And the people around spoke of their admiration of the kindness, the compassion, and the generosity of the Raja. Thank you. So now I'm going to pass the diya to our colleague Asha, who will tell you about a major story of the Diwali and of her own traditions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Terry. And I'm sure all of you are enjoying this wonderful stories about Diwali. And now we come to the fun story of Ramayana, or the journey of Rama. So this story is told in every courtyard in India. And every time we tell the story, we get up and cheer Rama. So I want everybody to get up and say, "Jai Ho!" Please get up and cheer him. Good. Now the story goes, And may I have the map for a moment, please? So the story is in India and in Sri Lanka. You see, Sri Lanka was where Ravana, the 10-headed king of the demons, lived, and his 20 arms. It was a city of gold. He was an accomplished man, but his name itself was called the Scream. He made sure he got everything he wanted, but he was a bit of a bully, and he pillaged and plundered at will. On the other hand, Rama lived in India, and as you can see, they were separated by a body of water. So the story is very long, and I'm going to tell you just a short part of it. So we now meet Rama, and they are in the forest. Rama is a handsome prince, and he is in the forest. It's been 12 years now with his wife Sita, the beautiful, kind Sita, and Lakshmana, his brother. And they're living a very simple life in a hut. And you think, what are they doing in a hut? Well, you see, when he was going to be crowned prince, his stepmother, Kekai, went to his father and said, "Dear sir, you remember you had promised me 2 wishes. I'm ready to claim them now." And what did she ask for? My son Bharata, Rama's brother, stepbrother, be king, and Rama be banished out of the kingdom into the forest for 14 years. And when Rama was told that that's what he's supposed to do, he agreed willingly. He said, "I'd rather give up the throne instead of your word, father. I'm happy to go into the forest." And so Sita, his wife, his dutiful wife, said, "My place is by your side," and his brother accompanied him into the forest. Now they've been living a simple life. Rama and Lakshmana go and hunt while Sita collects berries. She's very kind. Even the animals want to come and sit by her. And they have fought many a demon, but danger lurks nearby. Now one day, Surpanakha, the demon princess of the forest, sees this young, handsome man in the hut. And she's surprised. What is this good-looking man doing here? She's attracted to him. So she changes herself into a beautiful woman and says, "Hey there, who are you? What are you doing here?" And he says, "Well, I'm Rama," and he tells her the story. She says, "No worry, Rama, you can be a prince of this kingdom. Marry me, and we will rule the Dandaka forest together." And he says, "Well, I'm already married, but you know my brother out there, if you want to go check him out, he might be available." So Surpanakha goes there, sizes him up. "No, Rama, not bad." She says, "Well, Lakshmana, would you marry me?" And he says, "Why would you settle for a servant like me when you can have a prince?" And so back and forth they go. She realizes she's being teased. Just then, Sita appears on the doorway, and the fangs come out. Surpanakha changes her form, and she's ready to pounce on her. Rama holds Sita back and says, "Lakshmana, take care of her." Lakshmana takes a sword and slashes her up. Her nose is cut, her ears are cut, and bleeding. She runs to Sri Lanka, where her brother Ravana, the 10-headed monster with 20 arms, is king. Look, brother," she says. "This is what a mere human Rama and Lakshmana have done to me. How can you possibly allow that? This is such an insult." Says, "Well, my demon army can take care of it." "No way," she says. "He's destroyed most of your demons. And guess what, brother? He has the most beautiful wife. Sita is so beautiful. It feels like the moon itself is walking near. And I know how you like everything beautiful, and you want to acquire it. I think Sita would make a great queen for Sri Lanka." Says Ravana. So he thinks his demon army hasn't worked. And so he calls his uncle Maricha, and together they hatch a plot. He tells Maricha, "You have to turn yourself into a beautiful deer to attract Sita, while I go out and see if I can whisk her away." So the next day, As Sita looks towards the forest, she sees this beautiful golden deer whose eyes are glinting in the sun like red rubies and emeralds. She's so fascinated. Rama, she says, come, 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 look at that beautiful creature. Would you please catch him for me? Sita, my dear, he's too beautiful. It might be a trick. But I never asked for anything, Rama. Rama feels, oh my God, my dear Sita, who's left her palace, who's left all her finery. He feels he should get her that deer. Lakshmana, come here. Stay by Sita. Do not move away from her side. Let me go after the deer. So he runs after the deer. The deer is running deeper and deeper into the forest. They go so far away that he shoots an arrow, and suddenly the deer becomes Maricha, and he calls out in Rama's voice, help me, help me. Oh, Sita hears that. Lakshmana, please, do you hear it? Oh, don't worry, Sita, I bet it's a trick. Rama is too good a warrior. I'm sure he doesn't need help. But how can we let Rama stay that way? The cry comes again, and she forces Lakshmana to go after Rama. But before he leaves, he says, Sita, stay right here. I'm drawing the circle of fire around you. If anybody steps inside that, they will burst into flames. You are not to leave the circle. So Sita sits down and waits for him. And just then, this holy man with the begging bowl comes around. Who will feed the hungry? I'm tired, thirsty. Sita says, please, please, sir, do sit down and let me tell you my story. No time for that. He starts to walk away. She says, please, please do sit down. Just wait. My husband and brother-in-law will be back very soon and I'll get you some food. You never make a holy man wait. I can bless you, but I can also curse you. Your lands will run dry and you will have no children. Oh, please don't say that. Please wait. And guess what she does? She steps out of the circle, turns around, picks up a fruit bowl. And as she comes out, there in front of her stands the 10-headed Ravana with his 20 arms. Ha, ha, ha. Sita, you will be my wife. You will rule the great golden city of Sri Lanka. Come with me. She says, you must be kidding. I'm married to the most valiant man on earth, and he will protect me. Oh, yes, he says. He takes her up in his flying machine, the famous Pushpak, and he's trying to go away. The great Jatayu, the vulture king, snoops down and says, Ravana, this is no way, no warrior's way to simply take somebody's wife and run off. If you really want her hand, then face Rama in a duel. Oh, get out of my way, Jatayu. He gets the sword, cuts his wing. Jatayu falls on the ground. His wing is almost gone. He's ready to die. And what does Sita do? She takes her ornaments and one by one drops them as the flying machine goes off to Lanka. In the meantime, Rama and Lakshmana get back to the hut. And of course, they realize they've been tricked. No Sita to be found. Where should we look for her? Just then they see all the animals facing south. Ah, that might be a clue. The animals love Sita. So they follow south and they come upon Jatayu as he's about to die. And he says, yes, they're headed to Sri Lanka. Please rush, go southwards as soon as you can. And Rama and Lakshmana go deeper into the forest. And there they meet the famous monkey god. May I have the slide, please? A big army of monkeys with Hanuman, the big general of the monkey army. And I want you to look at this picture and tell me what you see. And as you can see, there's an army of monkeys and they're fighting a figure here that I'll tell you about in a minute. So I want you to look at this very carefully. And now you can join me as the army of monkeys, and we are going to head southwards and see if we can find Sita. They come to the edge of the land, and right in the distance, they see Lanka, the beautiful glittering city. but there's a body of water between them. How do they get across? Rama, don't worry, Hanuman says. My father is the god of wind. I know how to fly. I will go and find out where Sita is. So he leaps across, lands on Lanka. Well, where do you look for Sita? Looks at the beautiful palaces, and then as he is walking around, he sees Ravana come out with his magnificent entourage, his 10 heads, his 20 arms. And right below a tree sits this quiet, forlorn figure. And he says, Sita, enough is enough. It's been 10 months now. Rama is never going to find you. Come, be my queen. And I'm giving you my last warning. If you don't come in, I will have you cooked for dinner. Oh yes, she puts a straw of grass by him and says, Rama, my lord, will be here very soon. There's no way I'm going to be your queen. Ravana says, enough of that, and walks away. So now Hanuman realizes this is Sita, and he very quietly talks to her. Don't you worry, Sita. I'm Hanuman, the messenger that Rama sent. And he's got a ring that he drops there. And she sees it and she's so delighted. She says, oh, thank God, thank you, Hanuman. Please tell Rama I miss him. She gives him a little hair ornament to remind him of her. So Hanuman, of course, starts uprooting all the trees. Ravana is very upset. He says, bring him in. And he wants to kill him. And his brother says, why shoot the messenger? Let's find out where Rama is rather than shoot the messenger. And so they light his tail on fire. And what Hanuman does, he lights up the entire city, burns the entire city down, and jumps back to India. They throw boulders, make a big bridge, and they land. And there's a huge battle between Ravana and Rama. And at last, the only two people facing each other are Rama and Ravana. And as the 10-headed Ravana and Rama face off, Rama shoots his arrow. The head falls down, but then it falls back up again. The head falls down, it falls back up again. Rama is at his wit's end. Then he realizes his power lies in his navel. He takes an arrow and points to the navel, and suddenly, with the thuds, all the heads come crashing down, and Ravana is dead. He runs to find Sita, and Hanuman picks them up, flies them back to Ayodhya, and as they approach, they see the entire city lit up with lamps. For people remember that the real heir to the throne, the good King Rama, will return in 14 years. And that's the way we still celebrate Diwali, with a string of lamps welcoming the great Rama back to his rightful throne. Thank you. Back to you, Triana.
Thank you, Asha. So as we finish out our program today, I just want to say thank you, Rupa, Janie, Ed, Terry, and Asha. Your stories were so engaging, lively, and terrific. On behalf of the storytellers and the Asian Art Museum, I just want to say happy Diwali and thank you for participating in our program today. We really have had a pleasure sharing the stories with you and celebrating with you today. For other ways, resources, and ways to celebrate Diwali, I will put in the chat right now the link to our Diwali webpage in our cultural celebration section on the website. We hope you have a wonderful week and hope that you can visit the museum soon. Thank you, everyone.